Hey guys, welcome back, it's Meg. Today we are going to be going over some of the changes that we got for 10.0.5. First we are going to be talking about the quality of life things in relation to Feline Stomp. This one was what was exciting a lot of people. The following talents for Feline Stomp, which is Ancient Concordance and Awakened Feline. Both of those effects will now linger for 8 seconds as a buff, even when you are not in your Feline. You receive the full benefit of both of the buffs as if you were standing in it, however, you do not have the opportunity to fish for resets if you are not standing in your Feline. So basically what this talent means for us is that even though you want to be in your Feline most of the time anyway, because of the chance for a reset as well as the ability to have that buff if you do have to move out, it does allow us to have a little bit more freedom on bosses like this, where we're going to be taking just a couple steps out of it every now and then, or while we're running around collecting orbs, or just doing any other type of mechanic that requires us to be moving a lot. A lot of these dungeons have it, so this quality of life is very nice. We also benefit from things like trying to clear Thundering without losing the buff. We don't have to worry so much about Sanguine or things, any type of area of denial. We'll still get more out of our Feline than we were before. So this overall is a really good change, and I'm glad that they put it in. I think that this has also encouraged a lot of Mistweavers to maybe try out this build if this is something that they weren't running before because of the fear of their group not standing near them and them having constantly to replace it and get value. So I'm glad that this has opened up opportunities or desire in people, as well as personally benefiting just because I don't have to be so hard on the line all the time. I get a little bit more freedom. Another change that we received was a slightly less RNG factor in Feline Stomp. This wasn't a huge issue, it was more of an inconvenience, and one that kind of made you look at your screen and go, really? But essentially we will always have a branch and a circle in our stomps now, which means that they are going to be longer and give us more area to move. This is a pretty good change. Again, mostly quality of life. It doesn't change the gameplay too much, but it does make it a lot more convenient to do certain things in certain dungeons. Another little bug fix that we got coming into 10.0.5 was the chance of reset on a Feline, actually. It was not the proper amount, and that has since been fixed, so you should be seeing an increase in your Feline procs. Overall, all of the Feline changes that we've received, I've been a big fan of. I think that they are definitely acting quicker on concerns of players, especially Mistweaver. I think that this is the most feedback I've ever seen Mistweaver receive collectively, which is kind of sad to say, but I'm pretty sure that that's actually accurate. So really glad to see the reception on this from the devs. Big props to them. One of the other major changes that has actually been a huge increase is that Rising Mists will now extend the renewing mists that are applied by our Rapid Diffusion, which means that we are going to have a much easier time blanketing the party with renewing mist. This is convenient in Mythic Plus, but it is a much bigger deal in Raid. It can be up to 6% healing increase just by playing properly, being rewarded for proper play, so that is really exciting. That's a really nice buff. Burst of Life is something that we may find ourselves using in runs that we have a lot of damage going out and we are maybe looking for more AoE healing rather than protecting a single person. I haven't played with that one too much yet. I didn't really like it back in BFA, but I am definitely willing to give it another shot because I think that it does have some potential. Yu'lon has also received some mana nerfs, which means that it is in a more competitive spot for raiding. I will probably still play Chi-Ji just because I'm not a big fan of the Yu'lon playstyle. Zen Pulse now requires less hots to be applied. You only have to have them with Enveloping Mist instead of Renewing Mist when you are using Echoing Reverberation. This is a small change. I kind of would have liked it the other way around, where only Renewing Mist is required, just because we get more of those, especially now that we are dropping Misty Peaks to take some other talents that we are going to talk about in a second. Revival now scales up 100% in 5-mans, and this was one of my favorite changes that we got. This is a big day for Revival, and now it is actually a legitimate AoE cooldown. Probably the biggest change that we received was the removal of the Bone Dust Brew talent, as well as the following traits that you could take from it. Instead, we have received Shaylun's, as well as a choice node right below it with a connector back to Rising Mist. Shaylun's is 2.5% of our base mana and is a 2-second cast. It is hasted, so it can be lower, but it is still kind of a long one. Basically, it is a build and spend stacks at your leisure thing. You will accumulate 1 cloud up to 10 every 8 seconds while in combat, and there is a talent called Veil of Pride that will reduce that to 4 seconds. So that one is what we are going to be using in certain dungeons that require more AoE healing more frequently. A good example of this would be in Ruby Life Pools, Halls of Valor. Those are two that immediately come to mind when I think, where do I want more healing? So I'll probably be using Veil in there. That's what I'm using in this Knockhood. I like the fast cloud generation, but I did notice that on the trash I was kind of just sitting on 10 stacks. There wasn't much damage going out. There wasn't really anything that I wanted to spend them on. So I think that the choice node will come down to dungeon ultimately, and comfort, as well as affixes. There's a lot of things that go into our talent choices, so this is no exception. In this footage, I have swapped to Shahhaus off of Veil of Pride. This is the other choice node right under Shaylun's Gifts talent. So with Shahhaus Lessons, we still have the 8-second cloud generation from the base ability, so it's going to take a little bit longer to build up those stacks. But with Shahhaus Lessons, when you spend the stacks, you're going to receive 1 of 4 buffs. It is pretty random. There has been no rhyme or reason to which buff you receive, and none of them are bad, but it would be really nice to be able to target them for certain situations, kind of like Secret Infusion. First up, we have the Lesson of Doubt. Our spells and abilities will do up to 35% more healing and damage depending on what their health is. The Lesson of Despair is a 30% increase to our crit while we're above 50% health. Lesson of Fear decreases our damage taken by 15% and increases our haste by 25%. And Lesson of Anger, 25% of the damage or healing that we deal is duplicated every 4 seconds. So while these buffs are actually very cool, I like the idea. I think that they definitely made it worth the cast time for the buffs that you receive. However, being able to pick or being able to have some type of pattern to go off of in terms of which we would get would be awesome. So my damage and keys when running lessons has been higher. However, I do think that this is going to be something that is reserved for weekly keys, or for your homework keys that you're trying to push up, or keys like Court of Stars that don't really have a lot of healing in them and it's more damage focused. That's where lessons will shine, but I think that in the higher throughput dungeons you're going to want Veil for the fast cloud generation. My first impression of Shaylun's altogether was that it was going to be this really nice panic button for when things went sideways, but it isn't hasted quite as much as I expected it to be. It is still a pretty long cast, so I think that it does better with the scripted damage that is going to be extremely consistent. You're going to see that a lot in Ruby Life Pools, you're going to see it a lot in Halls of Valor, and even in this dungeon with Laymore and with Greywing, it's very consistent damage patterns, and that's where you're able to save yourself the mana, the time, as well as the inconvenience of having to vivify everyone in your group, and instead you can just use Shaylun's, heal 3 people, and then rely on your ancient teachings for the rest. I like the intent behind giving us this ability and getting rid of something that was essentially a dead talent for PvE, but I do think that there are some quality of life things that could be looked at. It is slightly RNG. I'm not one that really likes smart heals or the idea of smart heals at all. I think that they do make the gameplay a bit boring. However, I think for Shaylun's, given that it's only 3 targets and it does take so long to kind of gather those clouds, I could see it properly triaging. That would be one thing, but mainly I would like a shorter cast time, maybe half a second. It doesn't even have to be crazy, but it does feel really bad to be standing in melee and casting that after we have received so many changes that allow us to not stand and cast in melee. If it was instant through Soothing Mist, that would be fine. If it was instant all the time, that would be fine. And if it worked with Thunder Focus Tea and was instant that way, and also procced Mastery for using Secret Infusion, I think that that would be a really nice combination. And it would also bring a lot of more consistent play from Mistweaver that has historically been so reliant on that RNG healing. I'm okay with the mana cost. I think it's appropriate. It's not an ability that's meant to be spammed, so I feel like its cost is pretty good for what the ability is and what it's meant for. Again, I would really like to be able to control Shahhaus Lessons in some way. Maybe instead of the clouds number being the duration, it could pick the buff that you receive so that you can, at your preferred number of stacks, grab the whatever buff you wanted and then just have the timer be consistent 15 or 20 seconds. Overall, between the tuning, the new abilities, and the quality of life changes, I am super happy with how this patch has gone for us. I'm excited to see any additional changes and bug fixes we may receive, but overall, I give it a big thumbs up. I'm having a blast. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitch while I'm live, or in the comments, or in the Discord. I will also be active there. But I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.